Now that,
Okay.
now that I'm a co-host, I'll go ahead and record. There we go. Now it's recording. Okay. So hi, this is Tom Stone, and I'm giving a presentation to a lovely group of kindred spirits who are friends and connections with Sandra Fitch. And it's my pleasure to be here to share with you some insights about how to resolve trauma, post-traumatic stress, and related disruptive emotional issues. So I was just starting to say that I've had some very great success with this, starting with myself. You know, everyone knows the expression necessity is the mother of invention. And, uh, and Sandra gave me an introduction, which we didn't get recorded, but she was mentioning that in 1993, I got shot in the chest by a deranged stranger with a 44 caliber handgun. Now, 44 is a big gun. The bullet's about this big. Hunters use them for killing bears. It's a complete miracle that it didn't kill me. In any case, I ended up with a couple of surgeries and the bullet wound for physical healing. But the biggest part of my healing was for the PTSD that you can imagine would be a result of being a victim of a crime like this. And I had all the PTSD symptoms. I had nightmares, flashbacks, startle response, everything. And I didn't believe the psychological dogma that PTSD is incurable. I thought, well, maybe it's really that they just don't know how to cure it. Doesn't mean it's incurable, just they don't know how to cure it. So I did my own specialized kind of private research to see if I could find something to heal myself. And what I found was, after it took quite a while to discover it, but I got an incredibly simple insight that allowed me to experiment with something, and I managed to completely cure myself of PTSD. I haven't had a PTSD symptom in over 20 years. And that insight's very simple. It's just basically this: when we're very little, we all get emotionally overwhelmed. Everybody remembers that. And we don't like it. In fact, we hate it. And this is universal, it happens to everybody. And so, what we do is we get deeply conditioned to go away from where the sensation of the incomplete, unresolved traumatic experience is held in our body. And we all know what those are like. They're kind of tight knot or ball of energy that's held inside somewhere. So, when I had this insight about being emotionally overwhelmed, I had the idea to experiment with doing the exact opposite of what we're deeply conditioned to do. So instead of going away from the painful, traumatic experience, I decided I would let myself get actually closer to it and allow myself to feel the central, strongest part of the residual energy of the sensation and just see what happened. So I started to do that, and the 3-year-old inside of me was kind of screaming, Tom, you don't want to do this. But I said, take it easy. I'll just give it a try. We'll see what happens. And so I did. I thought about the situation of the getting shot. I could feel the terror in my chest. And I just let myself focus right into the central, strongest part of the energy field of that residual trauma that was in my chest. Well, at first, that made it feel much stronger than normal, because normally I've been doing everything I could to avoid it, just like everyone does. But as I allowed myself to feel it, the first thing I noticed was it didn't kill me. It did that. It was like, oh, it's possible. Yeah, it's intense, but it's possible. So after a while, the energy started to actually soften and become less intense. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Let's experiment with it a little further. So I got my courage up even a little more. I got even closer to what was remaining of the energy. That again made it feel stronger. It wasn't stronger, it just was stronger because I was closer to it. It's kind of like when you click in on Google Maps and get a magnification, you know? So I felt again right into the center of the strongest part of the energy. And again, after some time, it started to soften a little more. So, oh, okay, I think I'm really onto something. So I kept doing that, kept getting softer. Each time I'd get closer to it, it would get softer. Took a little while, but we reached a point where I couldn't find it anymore. All the energy was gone. So I thought, okay, So let me check it out. So I thought about the getting shot incident again, and there was no feeling of terror there. It was like amazing. So what I did was to be conservative. I said, okay, well, let me sleep on it, see how I feel tomorrow. And so I did. I slept on it, woke up the next morning. And the first thing I found when I woke up the next morning was that I hadn't had a nightmare that night for the first time in, I think it had been like 2 or 3 years that I'd been working on this to find an answer. And so that was amazing to me. And now I thought, okay, I'm really onto something. I'm going to do this for every aspect of the trauma of that whole experience. And I did that. And within a few days, I couldn't find anything more to work on. All the traumatic energies were gone. No more nightmares, no more flashbacks, no more startle response, no more hypervigilance. It was like PTSD cured, which is like unheard of. People just don't do that, particularly by themselves. So I started to teach this to people who were, friends and associates. And what I found was that it could be used for all kinds of disruptive emotional stress. It didn't have to be severe trauma in order to be able to benefit from it. So since then, I've been traveling around the world teaching people. About a year and a half ago was the end of about a 6-year stint in China. I've got hundreds of students in China, many very advanced and doing extremely well. I now have some of them teaching my work in different cities in China, which is great. And the intention is to do that all over the world. And we'll be also setting up what are called world wellness centers. While we'll be using this device that Sandra mentioned we have called the Quantum Energy Optimizer, or QEO for short. And with it, we can reduce the symptoms caused by air pollution. We can get rid of allergies. I used to have terrible hay fever and allergies, and I had a handful of treatments with an earlier version of this device, and I haven't had allergies in 20 years. So it's a phenomenal technology. So in any case, the main thing I wanted to talk about today and really give you a feel for, in fact, even maybe do a demonstration or two, is about the technique that I discovered for resolving the trauma. As I started to mention before we started the recording, I worked with a Vietnam veteran who'd been in the worst of the battles in Khe Sanh in the 60s when he was just in, like 19 or something. And he'd been shot, he'd been had lots of his friends die. He'd killed lots of Viet Cong soldiers, and he had PTSD really severe. He'd sleep only 2 or 3 hours a night, wake up with a nightmare, and couldn't get back to sleep, feel all hypervigilant. Anyway, he'd been going to the VA for 17 years for cognitive therapy, and he still had his nightmares. And he came to me for a session. We used a thing called muscle testing, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with because I know Sandra does that. And we tested that he had 5 traumas creating his nightmares. So I guided him through the process of resolving those 5 traumas just in the one session. And the next day he called me up and he'd slept 9 hours with no nightmares for the first time in 43 years. So just one session. So this is not superficial stuff. This is very quick and powerful and actually relatively easy. It's just learning how to do some things that are the exact opposite of what we've been doing all our life. And I did want to share with you, screen share with you, just one quick video. If I can do that, let's just see if I can do that. Yeah. I wanted to show you this one YouTube video. It's about 1.5 minutes. This is a person who was a recent client who had severe nightmares, and this is what happened for her. This is very short, 1:26.
Hi, I'm Heather, and I came to Tom after experiencing some really intense, persistent nightmares after a traumatic event in my life where I was not sleeping, waking up throughout the night, waking up with horrifying nightmares that left me feeling anxious throughout the day, to extreme levels. And I had one session with Tom, and after that one session, I haven't had a single nightmare since. It's been, I think, 2 months. And my anxiety levels went from like a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10 to a 0, and have stayed really, really low. Only, barely minimal experience of anxiety has reoccurred since then. And it's been rather miraculous, actually, to have this kind of relief and freedom in my daily life and in my sleep. So I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you, Tom.
So I'm just wanted to give you a couple of examples like this because this is not exceptions. This is commonplace. I mean, typically we'll get rid of nightmares or any other PTSD symptom usually in 1 or 2 sessions. So it's quite a remarkable development, and it's a major important discovery for the field of trauma resolution because, as all of you I'm sure here know who have experienced trauma, how difficult it's been for people to resolve it. And it's understandable why the psychological community has adopted this kind of uh, attitude toward PTSD, that it's incurable. But that turns out to not be true. It's just that the wrong tools are being used. Cognitive therapy, like this Vietnam vet I mentioned, this guy was 17 years of cognitive therapy and he still had his nightmares. So obviously, you got to use the right tools to resolve this stuff. And I was extremely fortunate to discover that. And it's been my pleasure and honor to be sharing it with people around the world. Now, as I was teaching this, I discovered that there are actually 2 different patterns of emotional energy. And the big shift that we're making here is from trying to resolve the trauma through intellectual understanding, which gives you some knowledge about where it came from, or how severe it is or whatever. But the intellectual understanding doesn't resolve the trauma, because that which gives life to the trauma is the energy of the emotion, not the intellectual understanding of it. And it's energy that is basically, we know from physics, everything in the creation is just a pattern of vibrating energy. And if we go even further than that and look at the ancient Vedic science, which is the oldest knowledge on the planet, they view everything as patterns of vibrating awareness. And so everything that exists is merely patterns of vibrating awareness. So all you really need to do is find out the specific pattern of vibrating awareness that needs to be resolved, and then what to do about it. So in any case, I discovered that there are these 2 patterns of energy that we have related to emotions. There's the traumatic ones, like the ones I'm just talking about. These are the ones that cause PTSD and other kind of complex PTSD. Some of you probably even have that. And the other type of energy, first of all, that type of energy feels like a tight knot or ball of energy inside. All of you know exactly what I mean by this. I'm sure you have plenty of them. Everyone develops a kind of database of these unresolved traumatic energies. The other kind of emotional energy is what are called reactive emotions. And these are reactions to unmet expectations. You want things to happen a certain way, doesn't happen the way you want. What happens? You get upset, you get angry, disappointed, frustrated, sad. Or the other subcategory of the reactive emotions is when you project the possibility of a negative outcome onto the future. And that means you think something bad's going to happen. Well, both expectations and projections of possible negative outcomes onto the future, they're both forms of being not present. They're in the future. They're being absorbed in stories about things and then having a reaction to the story. So when you think something's bad is going to happen, you get anxious or fearful, and then you get caught up in a kind of cloud of energy that radiates out from the body and fills up the space around you. And when you're inside that cloud, you're looking through it, and everything gets colored by the energy of that cloud of that cloud. So it's kind of like having dark glasses on. You know, if you're angry, everywhere you look, you feel angry. Somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Tom, how are you doing?" "Don't talk to me." You know, it's like you're not even angry at that person, but you're still encased in the anger, and so you tend to react that way. So the best form of learning, in my experience, is experiential. And so what I'd like to do is to take somebody who'd like to volunteer and have an experience of this and guide you through this simple process of using one or the other of these techniques, or both, we'll see what we get, to access and resolve the energy of something that's preventing you from having some aspect of your life be better. So, you know, we don't have to take your most severe trauma. That's probably not a good idea. I'll probably take the oops. Somebody got, what is that? Is that me? Yes, it's me. Sorry, that was a leftover YouTube. I apologize. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, my apologies. Didn't turn off the YouTube after the share. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, as I mentioned, is that, you know, maybe one or two demonstrations. We'll see what the time is like. And those of you who can relate to whatever we deal with the person who's in the demo, you can follow along if you wish. So who'd like to get rid of some of their traumatic stress and feel freed up? Anybody up for that?
Well, I will, but I don't know how to name it.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's great that you're able to offer that.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Lisa. Nice to meet you. Thanks for volunteering.
Nice to meet you too.
One of the wonderful things about this work is because we're dealing with the energy, we don't actually need to know the origin or the cause or be able to name it or something like that. It's wonderful. It's not at all like cognitive therapy. Mm-hmm. So if you have what aspect of your life is it that you'd like to have be better?
Safety. So, just like, overall, yeah, as I'm watching the world do what it's doing, and half the people are aware and the other half aren't. Yeah. It causes fear in me, and because I can't control it. So, and that ripples out into financial future security.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to put us on view of speaker view, and yeah, now I can see you better.
Oh, speaker view, right.
So the thing is that every situation in life, Lisa, has two fundamental components to it. We have the circumstances, okay, which right now for everybody are challenging because of the pandemic and all of the news about it and everything, and you know, even knowing people who have problems. So we have the situation, and then we have our reaction to the situation, okay? And typically people are so used to having the situation and the reaction kind of bound together, like enmeshed, that it feels like it's one thing. And most people don't realize that it is in fact possible to separate the reaction from the circumstances. Typically the circumstances are long gone. Even if it was a few minutes ago, it was gone, okay?
Right.
But the reaction is what's left, okay? And what we want to do is to resolve the reaction. So this anxiety or fear that you're having about these situations is coming from the projection that something bad could happen to you or to someone that you know, right? And this is a story we're making up in our mind. Now, it's a completely reasonable story because there's plenty of risks right now, right? However, it's still a story we're making up. It's not a perception that there's actually, you know, a train coming and we're standing on the tracks and it's about to run. Exactly. It's not like that, right? So what we want to do is we want to somehow dismantle this illusion of being caught up in being kind of identified with this story that we've created. Does that make sense?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So it turns out that this is we can use the muscle testing to determine whether it's what we call the in-technique energy, which is that traumatic energy that's inside, or whether it's that out-technique energy, which is the reactive emotion. It could be either one or both. Okay?
Sure.
Because sometimes the traumatic energy is the basis for the fear. That something painful happened in the past, maybe it came out of the blue or whatever, okay? But it was painful and we don't want it to happen again. Okay? And so there's a wishing that it won't, and a projection that, well, maybe it will. Okay? But the maybe it will part causes us to go into that anxious, fearful reaction, and it creates this cloud of energy around us. But in your case, I'm going to test, we have both energies. No, we have just the in-technique energy. So we just have the traumatic energy to deal with, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
The same kind that I used to fix my PTSD. I only had that one technique for several years. It was only during my teaching and training of coaches and stuff to use this stuff that discovered this second energy. In any case, another story for another time. But what we want to do is to find the energy, that traumatic energy that's causing this reaction. Now, because everybody, you, me, everybody gets really good at suppressing and avoiding our emotions, okay? We learn that pre-verbally. We learn it before we even develop language. And we get so good at it, and then we develop language and we forget that we made this decision to suppress the emotions. Just even the suggestion of something being painful, we just instantly putting a lid on it so we don't go there. Okay? So what that does is it suppresses the emotions so well that many times we don't have easy, direct access to it because it's under the rug, you know? But the problem is it's still under the rug. So we have another little technique called the locate technique that we use to find the energy so that we're using the in technique on the right pattern of energy that's actually going to resolve the anxiety. It's at the real, pardon me, at the real root cause of the anxiety. Okay, so what I'm going to do is guide you through this locate technique. We're going to find the energy. You'll feel it without question. You'll feel it, and then I'll guide you through the in technique to resolve it. And when it's gone, you'll feel so much lighter, like $1,000,000. You'll be amazed. Okay.
Well, let me qualify this before you do it too. So for everybody here too, that this is like, to me, a missing piece for me. I've done a lot of work, as I'm sure a lot of people, everyone probably on this call has, very sophisticated, intelligent approach to life and healing and ownership and working things out.
All that stuff, yeah.
All that stuff. So everything you're saying sounds wonderful to me, and I just that I welcome it. I don't resist it in any way. I'm looking for that.
Fabulous. That's good.
Yeah.
You're perfect demo candidate. I appreciate it. And thanks for that comment. So that's wonderful. That kind of openness and recognition that, you've done so much work, but there's so many of those things that haven't really gotten to this and, and nailed it yet. So today we're going to nail it.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay. So good. So it's easiest to do this with your eyes closed.
Okay.
And if you close your eyes.
Are you on video?
Yeah, you're on video.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And we're also recording this, so others who couldn't make it will give them access. So when we sit and close our eyes and sit comfortably, what do we experience? We experience, obviously, you can still hear sounds. The sense of hearing is still active. You can hear sound of my voice and other sounds. You can feel your body sitting in that comfy place, it looks like, that you're in. And the other major thing that we experience when we sit quietly with our eyes closed for a while is we have thoughts going through our mind. Lots of them. Yeah? And what I'd like you to do is to take a few moments to just sort of observe your thoughts as if from a little bit of a distance, like just not being concerned about the meaning or content of the thought, but just observing the phenomena of thoughts occurring in your mind. It's easy enough to do. Now, the interesting thing about these thoughts occurring in your mind is that they're occurring in a background of silence. And that background of silence is actually your own awareness. And there's nothing in it, and it has to be that way. If your awareness was occupied with something, then you wouldn't be able to hear the thoughts. So fortunately, the awareness in the background is kind of like a blank screen that then experiences in our life can be projected on. Okay? Now, there's a very useful analogy here. If you look up at the sky on a partly cloudy day, you can see the clouds and you can see the sky. And the way you see the sky is very simple. You just look off to the side of the clouds and there it is. It's always there in the background. Even if it's totally overcast, the sky's still there, right? So when we are noticing the quietness in the background of our thoughts, it's a very good analogy. The thoughts are like the clouds, the background of silence is kind of like the sky. And so in order to experience the background of silence, we simply notice the thought and then look off to the side of the thought and notice the background of silence in which the thought is occurring. So it's a very easy thing to do, but we normally don't do that because normally we're using our awareness to experience everything in our life. We rarely pay attention to just awareness itself unless we practice some form of meditation that does that. Those who have, if you do this, you'll feel very familiar to you. The quietness is your awareness. Now, you won't stay in that state of the silence for a long time because another thought will come along and interrupt it. And that's completely okay because we're not trying to get rid of thoughts. We're just noticing the background of silence in which the thoughts occur. So you notice it, another thought comes along, you look off to the side of that second thought, and you notice the quietness again. And you keep doing that. And rather than one long experience of being in the quietness, you get this little sequence of tastes of the quietness. And as you do that again and again, this kind of enhances your sense of what that quietness is like. Because you're really giving yourself a chance to just let your awareness experience itself. This is awareness being aware of awareness. Now, after you've done that several times, the reason we do this is so that there's nothing in the way of allowing yourself to feel the energy of the stored emotion in your body that we're going to access that's at the root of this fearful, unsafe feeling that you've been having. Yeah. So now we're in a position to simply tell the body to show us where that constricted, unresolved traumatic energy is being held in your body. And just have the attitude that when the body shows you, you're going to allow yourself to feel it. Typically, pretty much immediately, the body will show you some tight knot or ball of energy held inside somewhere. Notice something like that?
Oh, yes. Oh, are you talking to me? Yes. Yes, I'm trying to not think it and just hear it. And it didn't make sense to me exactly, but it's under the back of my skull.
Okay, okay. So this is the correct location of the energy we're looking for. I'm muscle testing for you. Yes, it is. Yeah. And by the way, may I have your permission to do that? I don't want to be
Yes, of course.
hacking into your system. So very good. So this energy is the one we're looking for right now. If you notice that area where you feel that, you'll bring your attention closer to it. You'll notice that there's a field of energy there. It's softer out toward the edges and it's more concentrated toward the center. And what I'd like you to do is simply to notice the most concentrated, most intense part of the energy field, of the sensation of the energy field, which is typically right in the center. Can you sense that?
Yeah.
Okay, now this will make it seem stronger than normal because normally you're trying to not feel this. But now you're allowing yourself to feel it. And first thing you'll notice is it doesn't kill you to do that. It's not that bad, actually. It's just a sensation, right? Yeah, good. So I just want you to notice the sensation. At first, it may make it seem stronger, but gradually what will happen is it'll start to soften and become less intense. When it does, when it softens, let me know.
Oh, it already has, yes.
Already has, good. Okay. So that means you can get even a little closer to it now. Don't get so close that it becomes overwhelming. Get as close as you can so you can really feel it without it being overwhelming. And what'll happen after a little more time is it'll soften some more. When it does, get closer to it again. And just keep doing that. Each time it gets softer, get closer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you get toward the end and you're almost completing this incomplete experience you've been holding there, the experience will start to change. The energy will start to kind of dissipate and dissolve and kind of move away, almost like the sun, the fog burning off in the morning sun. And then at a certain point, it'll be gone and you'll be back in the quietness, but without the residual traumatic stress still present. It'll be gone. Okay, so when it's all gone, sweep the area, make sure that's all really gone. And when it feels like it's all gone, then you can open your eyes. Okay. Okay, so now we want to check out whether we got it or not. Right? So if you think about some of the things that you have been thinking about, like about the pandemic or about your financial insecurities, things like that, if you think about those, notice whether the circumstances may still be the same, but notice whether you still feel some discomfort or some lack of safety regarding it. How's it feel now?
Well, that's a interesting thing for me to report on because um, when I feel that fear or powerlessness, fuck it all, hopelessness, why aren't people paying attentionness, whatever it is, all that mixed together.
Right.
There is there's a retreat out of that that I can find. And so sitting here now, I'm not exactly feeling, I kind of was at the beginning because my neighbor was playing very loud country music, in case you heard it, which is why I'm not sitting outside on this beautiful day. And that's a tiny little piece of it, of just the infringement of courtesy of life. To me, it's all one thing. So what I feel right now is the way I feel when I've been really angry about something, and I try to revisit that energy myself to figure out what the trigger might have been, like after I'm past it. Right. And it's just, I never can get there. I never can really get into the feeling of it. Right. So right now I feel great. I feel really good. And the music stopped. Interesting. Got the power to, because I always want to be kind, and I'm just shocked that people, anyway. So how I feel is great. And I'd love it to really be a resolution for me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So this is just the beginning of a taste of it.
Yeah.
But you can see from this that, first of all, it's extremely easy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a matter of learning to do the opposite of what we've been doing all our life. We're deeply conditioned to avoid allowing ourselves to feel the emotional pain, but that's the 3-year-old in us, and you're not 3 anymore, but you've been letting the 3-year-old drive the car and you can't even see out the friggin' windshield. And now you just learned one of the techniques for being able to resolve the energetic basis of this. And what you'll be experiencing over the coming hours and days ahead is that you'll actually notice that you're just not as anxious and fearful as you were. Okay, so might be a good idea to get good at this, huh?
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for volunteering, Lisa.
Yes, for sure.
Appreciate it. Great. So this is the use of the what we call the in technique. The other one is called the out technique. And if there's, I think we have still plenty of time. We got still an hour. We could do maybe several more demonstrations. This would be great. So if anyone followed along, you can report your own experience. And if not, if there's someone else, let me go back to the view the gallery here so we can see who's available. Yeah. So
can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Can you do? Can also? I try to do it as well with physical pain. So obviously you've got trauma with emotional, but physical pain, can that work with that as well?
I have had varying success with that. Sometimes, yes. For example, I have a gal in Korea who's one of my long-term students, and I gave her, I've got recording of her session on the website under the demonstrations page. And she had had a surgery on her lower abdomen, and she'd been feeling pain from the incision of that for like 2 years.
Right.
And we used the in technique on that. And by the end of the demo session, that pain was gone. I checked with her a couple of weeks later. It had come back a little bit. We did it again. Then it was gone, and it was completely gone. And I've experienced that with many cases of what we call physical pain, there's some traumatic element of it that does respond positively to this new method of feeling into the energy field. So it's not always the case. There are also some cases where we use the device when it's available, the QEO device, to cancel out some of the energy of the conditioning related to the pain. So there are two different approaches that we have. But you know, when you get good at doing these techniques, which doesn't take long because they're so simple, and it's perfectly possible, especially if you learn the muscle testing, to be able to test to see if it's really a candidate for the technique, like is it likely to work, right? If it is, then you experiment and see, because in many cases I've found that it is.
And the other question, of course, you just come on to in terms of, often do you find that, just in my own experience doing work like this, is that there's emotion attached to the physical pain?
Very, very common.
Whatever it is.
Very, very
so
common.
Do you go into that, or you use it as a separate, you just separate it and just go into what they want to?
Yeah, one of the wonderful things about this work is that we don't waste time and energy in intellectually understanding, categorizing, naming. We just go straight for the energy, as we just did with Lisa, and we resolve it. And what happens is, you see, it's the energy that gives life to the problem, right? And when the energy's gone, the content flattens out and becomes like, just like, who cares anymore? It's like, can go in the history books.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want to spend our life, you know, figuring out the basis of everything that's gone wrong in it. We just want to live a happy life, and this is one of the fastest ways that I know how to do that.
So energy as a matter, and then we're dealing with getting rid of it. Yeah. So, and I was following what you were doing with Lisa Marie, and I could feel twinges in my body because I had an incident literally on Sunday, and I could feel, I went, and it's, you said you'll feel it straight away, and I did, on just one of the areas of the pain.
Okay.
And I could feel my foot was twitching as well as I felt it was leaving. So it was really bizarre.
When you feel the area that was uncomfortable before, when you feel it now, do you still have pain?
Well, I'm not moving around at the minute, because once I sit down, it's okay. But when I start moving, so I'll probably notice it a bit later on, maybe, because I scratched it and abrased it quite a lot on both legs when I fell.
Oh, okay.
So
you want to get up?
I think I need to do some work on that.
You want to get up and walk around for a moment, see if you still have it, just for a second, and then we can check. If you do,
okay,
maybe I can help you resolve it.
Okay, let me just hang on, because it takes me a while to get up.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Manisha. Cool.
still there a little bit. Let me just see.
How's it feeling?
It's still there a little bit, but when I sit down, it's not as painful because normally, because it happened just at the top of my thigh where I scratched it against the rock, and then the left leg, the lower leg, is where the skin peeled off.
Oh, okay. Do you have something else that's more up for you that you'd like to have be better?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, do you have some other issue that some other area of your life that you'd like to have be better? You know, you seem to be quite open to explore this. So what the heck? What's
oh my God, you put me on the spot. Yeah, okay. Well, it might be. I just putting it out there again. A little bit what Lisa says is about the change, about coming into my own power, coming into not being afraid of moving forward. I don't know whether that's.
No, that's a good topic. That's a good topic. This is an optimal topic for doing a demo. If you like, I'm happy to help you with this.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I'll help. Really
cool.
Thank you.
I have a set of very powerful insights into the nature of human conditioning. It's called the 12 Causes of Human Problems. And one of them has to do with this kind of holding yourself back, like being afraid to kind of put yourself out there. Is it sort of like that for you? I think maybe Misha's screen froze up. Are you there, Misha? Your screen has frozen, Misha. We can't see or hear you moving. While we're waiting for Misha to get her screen sorted out there, I think she's going to probably log off and log back on. Anybody else like to have a demo of this these techniques?
Hi.
Hey, Clara?
Yeah, it's Sierra. So I popped in late. I work night shift now, so I fell asleep. I only got like 2 hours of sleep. I woke back up, but I missed part of it. But I would like to have a demo if that's okay. I know I did miss the first part, but
That's okay. That's okay. We can get you up to speed. Good. So what aspect of your life would you like to have be better?
Okay. My ability, being able to being more able to handle my emotions and not have them overtake me, and being able to communicate effectively. Also, being able to stay present and not dissociate and like go away.
Okay, so the ability to be present and be able to resolve these emotional energies, it's actually an intention that has quite a lot of barriers to it. However, we could chip away at least one of them, one of the central, strongest ones that tends to create the fear of being emotionally overwhelmed. Do you tend to have that?
Yes.
Yeah. So optimal for us to do the demonstration on this. Yeah, let me put you on speaker view so we can get a better picture of you. Where did you go? Let's see. It's Ciara, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And I'm also here. And Lisa, we're gonna unpin. There we go. Okay, Ciara, if you want to leave your video on so I can see you, that would be optimal. There we go. Good. Okay. Nice to meet you. Thanks for volunteering. So this issue of being emotionally overwhelmed is like universal, right? Everybody fears this. It's really at the root of our deeply conditioned habit to not complete emotionally painful experiences. And then we accumulate the residue of those and we collect like a database of them. And we get more and more and more of them. And so what we want to do is to resolve the basic fear of being emotionally overwhelmed. And this is a fear that we get when we're pre-verbal, like we don't even have language yet. I was explaining it earlier when I was working with Lisa. And when we have that fear, then even if something feels like it's threateningly possible that it'll create some emotional pain, we suppress it in a heartbeat, like as quick as we can, right? And so that habit creates a real problem, which is we accumulate lots and lots of unresolved painful emotions in our body. Those eventually, we're talking about health related stuff, those eventually turn into chronic illnesses, right? So, and every alternative medicine practitioner knows that about something like 80% of diseases are caused or complicated by unresolved emotional stress. So this is something we definitely want to get good at and clean out that database and resolve those unresolved emotions that have accumulated. But at the root of the problem is this one fundamental fear I discovered, which is the fear of being overwhelmed. Okay? And that fear, Manisha, we went ahead and started a demo with Ciara, and when we're done with her, we'll come back to you. Hope you got your connection fixed. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Well, sorry we went ahead, but we want to make best.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll come back to you because I think
No problem.
there'll still be more. I got a lot of time left here. So Ciara, what we're going to do is I'm going to guide you through a similar process that we did with Lisa. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to find the specific pattern of energy that is the real root cause of this fear of being emotionally overwhelmed. When you just think about having emotions now, it's like you immediately feel the fear because it's kind of like an undercurrent. It's like there all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll guide you through the process and we'll see how much of this we can get resolved today. Okay. So go ahead and close your eyes. And just like with Lisa, take a few moments to notice your thoughts coming and going. And you remember the partly cloudy day analogy I was using. The thoughts are like the clouds, the background of silence they're happening in is like the sky. So as you're experiencing some of the next thoughts, just pick one and look off to the side of that thought and notice that the thought is happening in a background of a kind of emptiness or quietness. And as I mentioned before, you won't stay in that quietness for a long period of time because another thought will come along and interrupt the quietness. And that's okay. What you do is you just notice that thought, look off to the side of that one, and notice the background of silence once again. And each time a new thought comes up, you notice it, you look off to the side, and notice the background of emptiness, quietness, silence once again. You getting a sense of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, good. So now we can tell the body to show us that energy, and this is going to be one of those in-technique energies, the kind of emotionally painful kind. We're going to have the body tell the body to show us the emotional energy that's the real root cause of this fear of being emotionally overwhelmed. And if you allow yourself to feel it, pretty much immediately, you'll feel a kind of tight knot or ball of energy inside somewhere, kind of constricted feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah. Where do you feel it?
a few places.
Yeah.
My throat,
Yeah.
and then like right here.
Okay. Okay. Which one is stronger?
Um, I'd say like right here, but it's pretty close.
Pretty
It's
close.
pretty even. Yeah.
So go ahead and keep your eyes closed and go ahead and go to the place where the energy feels like it's the strongest, that one in your abdomen there. And notice that there's a field of energy there. And in the field, there's a place where the energy feels stronger than elsewhere. It's typically toward the center. And by the way, anybody who's in the group today, you can follow along on this, that'll be fun. Like, can you sense that place where the energy is the strongest?
Yeah, it's in the middle.
Right in the middle. That's right. That's right. So the instruction is incredibly simple. All I want you to do is just innocently, gently notice that central strongest part of the energy field. Now, because you're normally not going there, this will make it feel stronger than it is normally, but that's just because you're allowing yourself to notice what's really there. And as you notice it, after a while, it may start to, very likely will start to soften and become less intense. When it does, let me know. How's it doing? Feel a little easier?
Yeah, I was trying to soften it by breathing.
Yeah, don't worry about the breath. Just concern yourself with noticing the energy, just simply noticing it, okay? Breathing techniques can be good for various things, but you want to do this in a kind of simple, pure way. So now that it's a little softer, get a little closer to it. You want to get as close as you can so you can really feel it, but not so close that it's overwhelming. And you just simply notice the central strongest part of the energy. And again, after some time, it's going to soften some more. It's getting a little softer. Yeah.
Yes.
So each time it gets softer, right away, get closer to it again. So it's a sequence of noticing the central strongest part, having it gradually soften, getting closer again. You just keep doing that again and again, and it just keeps getting softer and softer. And as I mentioned to Lisa, as you get near the end, and you'll reach a point where the energy starts to kind of dissipate and break up and move away. It's a little bit like the fog burning off in the morning sun. And then you'll reach a point where all the energy's gone, you can't find it anymore. And when you reach that point, let me know.
mostly all soft now, I think.
Okay. So better is good and gone is optimal. So make sure you don't shortchange yourself. Go ahead and feel it until there's truly nothing left.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now, when we started, you mentioned you felt it in two places. You had it in your throat as well. Go back to the throat and check and see if there's anything left there.
Yeah, it's like my throat and chest.
Okay, yeah, upper chest and throat. So this is what we think of as kind of like having a backup copy, like you stored it on two different hard drives, you know? So take a look there. You'll notice again, there's a field of energy similar to the one you had down in your abdomen. And notice again that there's a central strongest point of it kind of right in the middle. You sense that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to do the same thing you just did on your abdomen, and that is just notice the central strongest part of the sensation. Again, that'll make it seem stronger at first just because you're allowing yourself to notice it, which you don't normally do. And then gradually it will soften. And just like before, each time it softens, get closer to it. The basic concept is we want to complete an incomplete experience from the past, where something that happened that was just too much to process at the time. Now we're coming back and completing something that we hadn't been able to complete, and we've been holding it there all this time. So each time it gets softer, get closer again. Not hard to do. The basic concept is we want to feel the essence of this energy, which lives right in this central strongest part. That's why we're looking there. I want to experience that so completely, so thoroughly, that there's nothing left to feel.
This one feels more up here. Feels more emotionally charged, actually. But the one down here did.
Yeah, the other one wasn't quite that way. So that's okay. Don't concern yourself with naming or qualifying the emotional charge. Just keep putting your attention right into the center of that strongest, most intense part of the energy field. And it'll gradually diminish more and more. And just like the other one, when it's gone, let me know.
Okay.
Feels gone?
I think so.
Okay, we'll double check here. Yeah, you got it. Very good. You can open your eyes. You nailed it. Good work. So let's do a little what we call provocation test. I want you to think about having some emotion, maybe from the past, that comes up that you weren't able to complete in the past, and see if you feel a little easier about the process of being able to actually complete it and not be fearful of it. How's it feel to think about that?
So think about an emotion in the past that would trigger a response to me, you mean?
That would be one way to do it, yeah. Now, those emotions will still have their energy, and you'll need to get good at doing this technique so you can resolve them. But the fear of having to deal with them, the fear of being emotionally overwhelmed, that's the thing that we just worked on. And we want to see if that feels better when you just think about it or talk about it.
It feels smaller.
Feels smaller. Very good.
Yeah, it's not as big and all encompassing.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Good. So if there's still some of that energy left, either in your abdomen or in your throat, when I'm going to start and work with Manisha for a few minutes, but if you want, you can go back in, and if there's anything left, go ahead and thoroughly complete it, and then you'll feel even better.
Thank you.
Good job. Thanks for volunteering. Appreciate it. Manisha, let's do something quick with you too. Got your internet connection working now? Hi, welcome back. There you
Sorry,
go.
I was trying to talk and it's not muted. Sorry, the connection's not great. I'm in the middle of nowhere in the country in Wales, so
okay.
it's going in and out.
I have some Welsh in my heritage. Interesting. So, are you from India or Pakistan or something?
No, well, my family's from India. I'm actually living in the UK.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Where in England are you? I mean,
in the Midlands, Leicestershire.
Okay.
Near Nottingham.
I've been in England many times. Love it there. So, you're mentioning about holding yourself back. There's an interesting phenomena that happens. You know, I'm sure everybody here has some major project they'd like to get done, and what they find is that it's just not getting done. Is it kind of like that? It's like you want to write a book or start a business or do something, and you got this idea, but somehow it just keeps not happening. Is it like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting dynamic here, and that is that when you want to be powerfully self-expressed, and you're starting to want to move in that direction, there's a fear in you that what's going to happen is that the people around you aren't going to be able to handle it if you're really successful. They're not, because it'll be putting it in their face that you're being powerful and they're not. They don't want to have that happen. Okay. And you can sense that even if you're not thinking about it consciously, you can sense that that's the case. And so you hold yourself back in order to keep a kind of connectedness with the people that are around you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing that happens when you're powerfully self-expressed is that you just change friends. Yeah, the ones who can't handle it drop away, and other people who are more powerfully self-expressed you become friends with. So the expression is lonely at the top. It's not lonely at the top. You just hang out with other cool, powerfully self-expressed people. Okay? So the fear of being disconnected from those people that you feel connected with now, that's the fear that we're after. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. In fact, I can probably relate that to a lot of people in the world, because them having to think differently to what their family do about, say, vaccines or whatever it might be.
That's right.
You know, it's a huge thing that's happening at the minute, isn't it?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So the fear of being sort of alone, like abandoned by people because you're, putting something in their face that they can't handle. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the fear we're looking for. You resolve that, it'll free you up to go for it and be powerful and be okay with them pulling away from you. You're not pulling away from them. They're pulling away from you because they can't handle you being powerful. Okay. So let's do that. So we'll do the same process. This is there's one in technique energy that's the root of this problem. Okay. So go ahead and close your eyes. I'll guide you through it. This won't take long, and then I'm going to share with everybody. If you want to get good at this, I'll give you some options for how to do that. Okay. So go ahead and close your eyes. Notice your thoughts. And you've had a chance to practice while other people are doing this already. So Look off to the side of the thoughts. Notice the background of silence in which the thoughts are occurring. And again, everyone who can relate to this topic, you can follow along. Maybe you'll get a breakthrough as well. So you're in the silence for a little while, then another thought comes along. You look off to the side of that thought. Notice the quiet background, silent, empty background once again. And you just do that again and again until you get kind of a little bit more of a feeling of familiarity with that quietness. Get a bit of a sense of that?
Mhm.
Okay, so now we can tell the body to show us the real root cause energy pattern is at the basis of this holding yourself back, like not allowing yourself to be powerfully self-expressed. And when you do that with an attitude of allowing yourself to feel it, pretty much immediately you'll feel the tightness of some constricted place inside where this energy is being held.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you feel it?
Well, I felt it straight away before you even said that in my chest.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. You're already sensitized to this stuff. That's great. So notice that there's a field of energy there, as I was saying before to Lisa and Ciara. And in the field, there's a place where the energy is more condensed, more concentrated. And it's typically right in the center. You get a sense of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just allow yourself to notice it. At first, it'll feel stronger than normal because normally you just try and avoid feeling this. But now you're noticing it's not so difficult. It's just a sensation. So what? And as you notice that central strongest part of the energy, just like in Ciara and cases, the energy will gradually start to soften and become less intense. And when it does, let me know.
Okay, I think it's eased up a bit.
Very good. So as you can get closer to it, so bring your awareness closer to it, get as close as you can so you can really feel it, but not so close that it's overwhelming. When that, when that softens more, just keep getting closer. Each time it softens, get closer. And it'll just keep getting softer and softer until there's nothing left of it. And as I mentioned before, as you get near the end, the experience will change. The energy will feel like it's starting to kind of dissipate and break up and move away, a little bit like the fog running off in the morning sun. And when all the energy is gone, when you've completed the experience, there's nothing left to complete anymore. And it's just the quietness without the emotional energy there. So when you get to that place where all the energy's gone, let me know.
I think it's these ones. I feel like I think it was coming through the back. It was like almost, it kind of puffed out a little bit on the other side.
Okay. And does it feel like all the energy is gone now?
Because a little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
I could be wrong because I've got a bit of bruising here as well. So I don't know.
Okay. So the energy at the root of this fear of being abandoned and, you know, people moving away from you because you're being powerfully self-expressed, the energy of this fear is now completed.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Still some of it left somewhere we have to go find and resolve? No. Okay. What I just did is called cross-checking. We do that to make sure. Yeah. Very good. So was there any particular project or intention or idea that you've been wanting to pursue and that you've been holding yourself back from?
Just really doing my healing, mentoring people. Yeah, on my own, and breaking away from the mental health service that I work for at the minute.
Okay. When you think about really sort of putting yourself out there in the way that you're describing, how does it feel to think about doing that now?
I don't think there's as much intensity as I was feeling before.
Okay.
It feels like it's just a matter of fact. It's got to be done. It's what I'm here for.
Superb. This is great. How long have you been holding yourself back like this? Must be
years.
Yeah. And in 5-10 minutes it's gone. Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, over and over again, people who've had cognitive therapy say one session of this, and this is just a little demo session, right? One session of this is worth like 5-10 years or more of traditional therapy, because emotion has content and energy. Yeah. And the problem is that the content, understanding the content doesn't resolve the energy. As long as the energy is still there, you still have the problem.
Right.
So resolving the energy flattens out the content. It becomes like, doesn't matter anymore. Like even forget, I've had over and over again clients come back and we'd worked on depression the last session. I say, how are you doing with the depression? They say, what depression? It's like, you know, so gone that the issue is even gone. I mean, now that's elegant. That's elegant solution. Yeah.
And that's funny you say, Tom, because I know when I do assessments for people who have gone through trauma, they always want, some of them will say, I need to know what happened. I need to know why it happened. Why? Not as opposed to, I just want to get rid of it.
Right.
And it's interesting because I'm thinking, well, do they need to know why? Or is
the reality is they don't. Okay. We've grown up in a psychological, overly relying on the intellect society, right? And people have also grown up with zero training in true emotional competence. It's all intellectual competence in education, right? So what's needed is to get people to recognize that the real source of the problem is in the energy, not in the content. And it's not difficult. I mean, you just talk to them a little bit, they get enrolled, and like this experience you've just had, look how different you feel about this.
Yeah.
You don't have any resistance to changing anymore. Nothing's gonna hold you back. Watch out, world, here comes Phoenicia.
Thank you so much.
I would like to jump in just for a moment.
Please.
While we were doing this, one of the things, of course, that we're all concerned with these days is not only the COVID, but reaction to COVID in terms of what the deep state is doing.
Yeah, and also to the vaccinations.
Yes. And so I was thinking, I wonder how powerful it would be if we each focused on a different part of the COVID experiment and went through that in terms of dissolving the energy.
Well, let me tell you about the options of how to get the most out of learning these techniques. Okay? So I had started this work like in 1997. All of you are familiar with Eckhart Tolle, I'm sure, in his book, The Power of Now. And as you know, if you know about his work, if you don't, I'll explain it. He had a spiritual awakening, and he's written a book called The Power of Now, where he describes his experience and what it's like. And he says that you have to get rid of two things in order to attain this. You have to get rid of the ego and the pain body. Well, that's exactly what the two patterns of energy that I'm talking about, the in and out technique energies. The in technique energies create the pain body, the out technique energies create the ego. Okay? But he doesn't tell you how to do it. So his book is called The Power of Now, but I have a book called The Power of How. And it tells exactly how to resolve the ego and the pain body. So the way it works is we used to do just a 9-step protocol session, which you could do on yourself because you also learn to do the self-muscle testing, or you can do it on clients. Okay? And what I used to see when people would do that is their progress toward starting to have that kind of spiritual awakening that Eckhart Tolle has, where you're living in pure awareness all the time, that I started to have people have the beginnings of those kind of experiences after about a year or two of doing this 9-step protocol. Well, I was in recently, about a year and a half ago, I ended about a 6-year period in China. And I was teaching in China, and I have hundreds of students there, many of whom are very advanced. And some of them wanted to start to be able to present my trainings and seminars in cities all over China. And I really liked this idea because I could only be in one city at a time. And I wanted this to be available everywhere in China. So I started a presenter training program. And in that program, I trained people how to do something that I created especially for that program called the Freedom Practice. And the Freedom Practice is kind of like the essence of this work. What it is you learn how to do the in and the out techniques, and you learn how to do the self-muscle testing, and you learn how to do the locate technique to find the energy when it's so well suppressed that normally you can't find it. And what you do is you start by doing this freedom practice about 20, 30 minutes in the morning. You just sit down, you let thoughts come, and then you muscle test which of 4 kinds of thoughts you're having. I discovered there are 4 kinds of thoughts that influence our decisions. Those are practical thoughts. Everybody's got lots of those. They have no emotional charge. They're fine. Everybody's got intuitive thoughts, and mostly those are covered up, and you don't have access to it so commonly because you've got the other 2 kinds of thoughts, which is ego-based thoughts and emotional pain-based thoughts. So when you sit down and you do this freedom practice in the morning or whenever you do it, you just simply notice thoughts coming and you muscle test which of the 4 kinds of thoughts it is. If it's practical or intuitive, you don't bother with them. If it's ego-based or emotionally pain-based, you then test what kind of emotional energy is at the root of that thought, causing that thought, and then you go find it and resolve it immediately with the techniques. Now, most people don't think like this at all. They don't distinguish what kind of thoughts they're having. They've been having all 4 kinds of thoughts their whole life, and they all just seem like normal thoughts to most people, okay? But when we want to get access to the suppressed emotional energy that's at the root of the ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts, this is now a systematic method of being able to do that. Now, what happens is you do the freedom practice and you resolve some thoughts in the morning. You resolve the energies at the basis of these thoughts in the morning. And then it doesn't take long, few weeks before you start recognizing thoughts that come up during the day. And you think, oh, that might be ego or emotionally pain-based. And you muscle test, and sure enough, it is. And so you immediately stop what you're doing right then, and you resolve that energy, and then it's gone. Now, the beauty of this is the ability to make something unconscious that most people just put up with, and put up with the limitations that causes you in your life, just for your whole life, and they don't do anything about it. But when you become aware that there's actually emotional energy at the root of two of the kinds of thoughts that you have, the ego and emotionally pain-based ones, and that you can actually find that energy and resolve it with these techniques, now you've got a method of cleaning out that accumulated databases, two databases of emotional energy patterns that you've been living with that have been undermining your life, causing you to make poor decisions, make costly mistakes over and over again, just thinking that that's just how life has to be. Well, it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Now we have a way of being able to identify and resolve these kind of thoughts and free yourself to live more and more intuitively. And what happens is we have actually an assessment. It's called a decision influences assessment. I can make it in less than a minute. And I'm offering to all of you, if you want one, just let me know and I'll make one for you, okay? And you can see what your inner emotional landscape looks like. Most of them are pretty cluttered, okay? Most people's intuition is influencing their decisions somewhere between 10 and 20%, and their ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts are influencing their decisions like between 30 and 50% typically. You know, it's a lot. So there's some deep spring house cleaning needed to clean up your inner emotional landscape. This is the most efficient way I've found to do it. So I taught these presenter students this freedom practice, and within a month or two, I started to see in their experiences what didn't used to happen for a year or two, you know, with doing it the old way. So this is like a 10, 20 times accelerator of people's progress in being able to do this. Now, I've had now the restructuring of my training so that this freedom practice becomes like the core first module of every training that I do. And one of the trainings that some of you may be very interested in is what's called extraordinary coach training, which starts with the freedom practice as the phase one. You learn the basics of how to do that. Then you learn the protocols for how to work with clients, which has got some additional things to it. And the third phase is using the freedom practice on a topic specific way to bring down the severity levels of all the PTSD symptoms that you have from wherever they are down to zero. Now, everybody's got PTSD. You may not get diagnosed with it, but everybody's got trauma for sure, okay? And various different levels of the various different symptoms. I have a form with 20 symptoms. You fill that out and you go through and you learn how to resolve the energies at the basis of all those symptoms, drive them all down to zero. When you have somebody who's at zero for all the symptoms of PTSD, oh my God, that's better than what we call a normal person. So this coach training, it's the first time I've incorporated the trauma resolution part of it into it because there's so much increase in trauma, anxiety, depression because of the pandemic that I wanted to create as many people as possible who can help to resolve this stuff. And so normally this kind of a training would cost something in the order of $3,000 for the training. But in order to make it super affordable so that anybody can participate, I'm just charging $497 is a ridiculously low price for a training like this because it's many months of training and also mentoring along the way in the process. So if you'd like to know more about that, I can put a link to the website where you can learn more about that. I'll also put the link to my email address because I want you to be able to okay, so there you have the link to the page all about the Extraordinary Coach Training Program and also my email address. I'm giving you my email address because if for some reason, you know, even the 497 is not possible for you, and I understand from talking with some people who have this SRA experience that in many cases people are financially challenged as a result of that. And so if you, there will be a certification for the course. Yeah, you'll become a certified extraordinary coach when you complete it. And the goal is to get as many people as possible capable of helping other people resolve their trauma. And we want to get there by taking you through resolving your own trauma and then exchanging sessions with other people in the class to help everybody get their symptom levels down to 0. So if you have an interest in learning more, getting good at this, as you can see, just the little bit of demos we've done today, how quick and powerful it is, please do take advantage of this. And if you have any questions about it, if you need if it's too much and you need a payment arrangement or something else, or you'd like to participate in some simple group coaching group we may form, then you can drop me an email. My email's in there. So in any case, that's pretty much the scope of what I wanted to share with you. And I want to just open it up, see if you have any questions.
In regards to add on to Sandra's question, in regards to like Sandra, were you asking about the collective, like how we can help the collective with maybe this work somehow together?
That's what I thought, Sabrina, is that with all of us here, that if we went, but we only have till 4 o'clock and Nina has to close Sacred Space. So, but what I was thinking is with all of us here, if we led through what Tom was teaching, with every one of us focusing on some aspect of this ridiculous COVID thing, that we could change the frequency of the vibration and have an impact on the collective. That's what I was thinking.
That's a nice idea. What I would suggest is that if you have one of the issues about the pandemic yourself, that would be the one to choose, because you've got that energy. You resolve it in yourself. That'll be having a positive effect on the wholeness of the collective.
And you're right. And I have my particular thoughts about it, but I thought everybody in here would have their particular thoughts about it. And the impact of, you'd reach critical mass more quickly if you were doing groups that were resolving the energy.
Well, that's a terrific idea. There is a principle in physics called coherent states, where in order to get things to shift to coherence, you only have to get the square root of 1% of the population being coherent, and the whole system shifts. So your idea is in line with physics principles. Yeah. So yeah, we could do that. Let's take 8 minutes or so, and everybody can do. Another time, I'll have to show you the out technique. We didn't get to that today, but we'll do that sometime, or we can set up some arrangement to be able to have you at least be able to see that in a video someplace. And I do have some of those. So yeah, anybody who would like, you've experienced following along on the in technique. Many of these traumatic stresses from the pandemic are in technique energies. So go ahead and think about something that's an issue for you regarding the pandemic, and then go ahead and do the in technique see if you can get it resolved. I think that's a great idea, Sandra. Let's go ahead and do that. So you just close your eyes. You notice the quietness in the background of your thoughts. You think about some issue that you have with the pandemic, a fear or some sadness or some kind of emotional energy related to it. And allow yourself to get in touch with that energy, and we can try out the in technique on that. See if you can find the energy in your body. Tell the body to show it to you. And when you feel that tight, constricted place inside, that'll be an incomplete experience of something emotionally painful regarding this topic. And so you just let yourself gently notice the central strongest part of it. And when it softens, get closer to it, and just keep doing that again and again until there's nothing left. And this will not only resolve that issue for you, but this will be a good contribution to the collective consciousness. When we're going to affect the collective consciousness, always a place to start is, of course, with ourselves. So when you've completed the energy that you were working on, put a little Y for yes in the chat, just so I can see kind of who's finished. Yeah, very good. You guys catch on quick. This is great. Okay, great. Well, those of you who are finishing up or doing so, I just went through the chat and noticed some questions that I didn't answer. Somebody mentioned our CEUs available, and we're not structured like that yet at the moment. It's interesting that in the past, in teaching these kinds of programs, I've had students going through them, and we actually had them practice how to do a certification session for like the International Coach Federation. And then nobody actually went and did it because they didn't feel they needed it anymore, which was quite interesting. So it's like, you know, didn't need a plaque on the wall, just needed the ability to be able to do this. So I want to leave some time for the closure, but I think we still have a couple minutes left if there are any additional questions.
I think we have time for one question.
Okay.
Because it's 3:53, so.
Okay. Okay, a lot of people said you're very interested in learning more. So take a look at that link that I put in regarding the coach training, and that'll be on my website. You can look around, there's some terrific material there. And my email address is there. So if you have any question about how you can participate and any challenges about what might get in the way of that, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to exchange emails. We can even jump on a Zoom call if we need to and talk it over. I'd like to help anybody who wants to learn how to do this get it and get it really well, because I'm going to need a whole army of people to help to resolve not only the people in the medical field where the anxiety, depression, and PTSD levels are way up, but just the general public. I mean, these problems are very high now. So if you have an interest, please do feel free to contact me. I want to thank Sandra again for inviting me to come, and I want to thank all of you for showing up and participating here with me. And I certainly look forward to getting to know many of you and helping you to get good at being able to resolve trauma, anxiety, depression, any kind of disruptive emotion, and start to live a life of true emotional competence and begin to really be able to access and live the totality of what you truly are. So thank you so much, Sandra. I really appreciate it. And best wishes to everyone.
Well, that was delightful, Tom. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that some of the folks come to see you and that you get some more people to add to your army. I'd also like to invite anybody, any of the people, like there are a couple of people I didn't know who are interested in dealing with and learning about satanic ritual abuse, which is what this group is usually about. We usually take a volunteer every week and work with them to show you, to teach the reality of that kind of abuse and also to resolve it. And thank you, everybody, because we need lots and lots of people to be able to deal with what's going on in today's world. Gisela, Agata, some of the others that were here who aren't usually here. It was lovely to see you, or at least know that you were there, Julie. It's nice to, to see you again. Okay, so I'm going to give it over to Nina to close out. So we end roughly on time. And Nina, that was such a beautiful protection at the beginning. So
Absolutely.
we can close up our We Are Coaches now, if you would like. And we'll leave the final word with our beautiful Nina. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sandra. There's just one thing I want to do before I close, while we've been doing something on the virus. It won't take a minute, and it's just come in. So I want you all to ask to program your light bodies. And if you remember that integration chamber, which we did at the beginning, the 6-pointed star, I just want you to imagine 3 star Merkaba. So you've got 3 6-pointed stars making 18. One's going to spin counterclockwise, one's going to spin counterclockwise. So you've got your physical body, your emotional body, and your mental body, and they're going to spin. And you're going to ask to program your light body to spin out any harmful viruses, bacteria, spores, or chemtrails, any lab-generated morgellons, or COVID, or any other bacteria which is harmful to the human race. We're going to call for the spirit of the virus to be dissolved, and we're going to call the elementals who work to destroy this virus to work with us throughout this next week. We're going to program the light bodies, command and demand your light body to spin out any harmful bacteria. And we ask for these energies to be purified and transformed. And we know that this work is done with the hand of God for the sake of humanity and Mother Earth. And in our closing prayer, we're going to call in God, Goddess. We're going to ask for a container to take all this misqualified energies from our homes, from our places, and from our bodies. We're going to be asked to be placed in our own protection bubble, our grounding cords anchored to the earth. We're going to ask Archangel Michael and the legions of angels to cut all cords, ties, and attachments between each and every one of us, which will individually drain our energies, but we keep the cords of love. We're going to ask now for a golden dome to be placed around us, and a rainbow bridge around, a rainbow circle around us, knowing that we're protected and we're guided. We're going to ask for a shield to be placed around our house to stop any negative alien implants or any interfering with our sleep time. And we give gratitude and blessings for this. So be it. It is done, it is done, it is done. Make sure you're grounded, feet on the ground and grounded. When you're ready, open your eyes and back into the room. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nina. That was lovely. Okay, I think we ended exactly on time, which is unusual for us. Good omen. Okay, God bless you all, and I hope to see you again. We'll see some of you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Sandra. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Sandra and Noel.
And Sierra, Tom, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
I need to, would you return the host to me, please? Because I'm on with somebody right after this.
I think you're still the host. You just made me a co-host.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can do that, or if I even need to do that. Hold on. Make host, yes.
Yeah, I have to.
There you go. Now you're host.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to just stop the recording now.
Okay.